Hey, what's up? It's Frank here from datadriven.tv. I just wanted to relay a story that I just, it happened a few months ago, but I was recounting the story a couple of days ago, and it's basically how studying data science changes the way you think, and not necessarily in ways that you would immediately assume. Such as, if you look at kind of the Google ads that are served to you, you know that they're mining your data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or Facebook. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how I approach problems now. So here's an interesting story. I got pulled into a WPF project. It was a WPF optimization project. So if you're not familiar with what WPF is, it is Windows Presentation Foundation. It is one of the ways to write Windows native apps in .NET. Great framework. Spent the better part of my life working on that, or at least 5-6 years. Spent 5-6 years working on the framework, so I dare say I know it really well. It was the precursor to Silverlight and Windows Phone apps, as well as UWP. So the framework I'm very familiar with. So I was tasked with optimizing this application, and as soon as I looked at the source code was, I'll be kind and say, not optimized. So they wanted someone to come in and optimize it. And then I kind of looked at the code, and the old me, the software developer in me would be like, all right, let's crack them knuckles and get deep and dirty into the code and fix it. But the data science version of Frank decided to take things a little differently. So what I was because if you've worked on optimization and kind of speed improvement projects, they can go one of two ways. You achieve the objective really quickly, or you achieve the objective very slowly and very painfully, or probably some combination of the two. So I've worked on these before, and they can be bottomless pits of despair and billable hours. And they had a very small budget. So I talked to them. I said, okay, what's the outcome here? So they had a page that took about 8 to 10 seconds to load, and they want to get it down to under 5 for a number of reasons. Not just the obvious, but they didn't want their employees to get distracted. So I said, okay. I took a look at the code, and I was like, the code instantiated 300 text controls and 300 text box controls all at the same time when you loaded it up. So we're looking at 600 controls. So kind of took at that, and I said, okay, well. And I was just talking to the customer a little more, and then a little bit more discovery came out that on so-and-so's machine, it loaded up within 4 seconds. And I thought, but on everyone else's, it loads up in as long as 12. I was like, that's interesting. So the data science version of Frank came out and said, all right, can you go and give me an inventory of the people's computers where it ran fast and where it runs slow? So we basically did some testing, and it turns out what really matters is there a graphics card, is there a GPU, and the amount of RAM, obviously, and if there is a GPU, do they have the correct drivers installed? Because that matters. Windows will default to a generic display driver, which I assure you is not optimized for speed. Anyway, long story short, basically figured out that if everyone made sure that they had the most recent drivers installed, as well as a decent graphics card. We're talking about, for 50 seats, I think total, $150 upgrade to the PC. So doing the math and compared to what bill rates could have been for the optimization part of the project, it worked out pretty well. And that was all just kind of munging the data and looking for patterns in the data. So that insight all was gleaned by looking at the data and discerning a pattern from the data, listening to what the data was trying to tell me. And that is today's data point. You have a great day.